News can break anytime, anywhere in the world. When it does, prime time is 24 hours a day, every day. CBC Newsworld, where news comes first.
Welcome back to this extended edition of Coast to Coast on Canada Live. In this hour, we are going to talk about grapes, wine to be precise. We want your questions about wine. Should you drink Burgundy with beefsteaks, Sauvignon with stew, and Champagne with chocolate? How and where do you store wine? And how much is too much for a good bottle of a fine vintage? And particularly in the holiday seasons, what wines might you serve at a party? What wines are good to give as gifts? And what is the best champagne to toast with on New Year's Eve? So today on Coast to Coast, everything you ever wanted to know about wine. And we're perhaps afraid to ask. You won't be shy with our guest. He's a man who can answer all of your questions. He's Randy MacDonald, an Ottawa sommelier or wine expert. As a waiter at the Chateau Laurier, he has recommended all kinds of wines to all kinds of people. He's also studied wine, judged it, and done lots of tastings. And he's in Ottawa. Hi, Randy.
Hi, Anne. How are you today?
I'm fine. You know what? I have to start out by saying that I personally don't think that a sommelier should be named Randy MacDonald. Your name should be Jean, shouldn't it? Or Michel or something like that.
Well, the first French restaurant I worked in about 10 years ago asked me to use my first name, which is James, but people prefer Randy. So I use it now.
Okay. Well, I guess that's part of the adjustment to realizing that wine isn't just fancy stuff from France, too.
Right. Well, yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, you go ahead. After you, Alphonse.
Well, wine is not one of those snobby kind of things that it was considered about 20 years ago, which is perhaps why I use my given name working in a restaurant rather than something a little bit more pretentious. It's simply something to be enjoyed rather than something to look up to or be condescended towards.
Well, what is a sommelier then, just before we start all of it? What makes you a sommelier?
A sommelier chooses wines, makes up wine lists, trains staff, and goes to the tables of the guests to recommend particular wines for particular dishes. Or if a guest has some kind of a special request or questions of any sort.
And how did you get to be one?
I was working in another hotel. It was a pretty new hotel a few years ago, and when the food and beverage management all changed and new people came in, they just asked me if I would take care of the wine lists, and one thing led to another, and after about a year, I ended up doing all the purchasing for the hotel.
So can you just call yourself a sommelier? Don't you have to go to sommelier school and get one of those nice... I love it, wines. They always give big, huge medals, don't they? You must have one of those medals.
No. Actually, there's... Until recently, there has been no sommelier school in Ottawa. The only place you could take it was in George Brown University in Toronto. And since I don't live there, I was not able to take the course, but I'm part of a committee at Algonquin College and we are making a sommelier program. We've started out in the first semester with a basic program, and we're going on to an intermediate level, and then after that we hope to go through an advanced level and give people the equivalent of the George Brown training so that they can write the Ontario Sommelier's exam.
Okay, I got myself off the track there on sommeliers. Let me get back. We're asking, particularly this time of year, particularly about 24 hours from now, when one goes to toast on New Year's Eve, let's talk about champagne. If you can't afford mums, which I think is what, like 70 or 80 bucks a bottle now?
It's about $32 or $33 a bottle for the regular mums, yes.
Oh, is it? Well, there's something that's 70 bucks.
There's quite a few. A lot of champagnes are going up to $150 and $200 now.
Well, let's say you can't quite afford any of those.
No.
What do you suggest?
You could try some Australian sparkling wines. They're made of Chardonnay, which is the main champagne grape, and these won't taste exactly like champagne, but they're made in the champagne method, meaning that they're fermented double in the bottle. There are some American champagnes that are quite good, although a lot of the cheaper ones are made in a bulk method where the wine with bubbles, and they're not that great because the bubbles tend to go flat really quickly. There's a good Canadian champagne. Chateau de Charme makes one. It's very nice, made of Pinot Noir and Chardonnay grapes. And there's a couple of other Canadian sparkling wines that are doing quite well in shows.
Now, should you, when you look for this, I understand the word champagne now, I mean, it can be used outside of the Champagne district, but is it being, or should you just look for white sparkling wine? How do you tell?
It's a marketing tool when it's not used in Champagne itself. Any European wine cannot call itself Champagne because they're bound by the EC rules. But outside of the EC, there has been court cases that allows Canadians to call something a Canadian Champagne. I think that what you should look for is look for something in the mid-level. Don't look for the cheapest sparkling wine because they'll tend to have some odd flavors and they'll go flat very quickly. Instead, go for something perhaps in the $8 to $10 range. There's lots of good ones from Spain. Spanish cavas, which are done in the Champagne style, are really good.
Okay, give us. I want actual names here because I think people are writing these down. So let's get the one Canadian you mentioned was Chateau de Charme.
Right. Chateau de Charme makes them. Potamer has been making decent quality sparkling wine for quite some time. And most of the other Canadian sparklings are not too bad. You can always check, of course, with your local store to see sweetness levels, or you can look if they have a guidebook. However, for names of European sparklings, I could go for Codorniu. It's one of the most popular Spanish sparkling wines.
And you consider that a good one, because that's very popular. I always see that at the level of friends that I have. I see a lot of Codorniu, and that's not a bad buy.
That's a very good buy, and they have 2 or 3 different kinds. They have all the way from Brut Zero, which is completely, totally dry. They have an extra special, and then they have a couple of others, and they're all good. They just all have slightly different characteristics. You might want it extra dry, or you might want it not quite so dry for certain people.
And you mentioned Spanish ones that are very good. Or is Codorniu Spanish? Is Codorniu Spanish?
It is. It's also it's the largest. I think it's the largest winery in Spain. But there's also Perolada, which is available in some parts of the country, which is quite good. And
what about that one? There's one in a black bottle.
Well, that's probably Brut. I think that's a Freixenet Cordon Negro. That's probably the second biggest selling Spanish wine, and it's also very good quality.
Somebody has just whispered in my ear, and I think it's one Freixenet. Is that how you pronounce it?
Right. It could be pronounced Freixenet. You might see it in the commercials.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It has an accent, and so that's a little confusing for non-Spanish speakers like myself.
Moving on from Champagne, I'll just try one more because I see that there's a whole bunch of people waiting on the line. If you're having a party and you want to supply your guests with wine, this is not a dinner party. This is an hors d'oeuvre party. A quaffable wine at a reasonable price, where would you suggest starting?
If you're looking for wine that's not served with food for the most part, I'd say try Canadian Rieslings, perhaps, or you might try a German Rieslings because they tend to be off-dry or tiny bit on the sweet side, although there are some very dry ones now. They're really quaffable. The Germans make their wines to be drunk rather than sipped. So I'd say that that's your easiest bet.
Well, you know, I want to go back to names, and you've again mentioned Canadian, and maybe we should just talk about that. You're suggesting that there are really good Canadian buys out there.
Oh, the Canadian wines in the last 5 years, both white and red, have gone to incredible quality levels. Unfortunately, the prices have tended to rise as well. So you're going to spend as much on a good Canadian wine as on a good American or a good French wine, but the quality will be there. It'll be almost the same as all over. After all, we have to compete in the world market, and with the GATT talks, we've had to take our protectionist measures against the other countries off.
And if you're going Canadian, how do you decide? I mean, I must say Canadian wines have got wonderful labels now. I'm really impressed by the labels, but I really have no idea what to choose. I tend to think, well, if it's the smaller the vineyard, maybe the better it is, but I have no idea if that's a reasonable way to choose. How do you tell?
You should ask your local store, basically. There have been so many new wineries, especially small ones in Ontario, that have opened up in the last 5 years, and I, frankly, haven't been able to keep up with them. They're going so fast. There's some wineries that made rather poor wines about 6-7 years ago that are making spectacular wines now.
Well, name some names. What are some vintners, or I guess that would be the proper term, that you're really impressed by?
Well, the big ones, Chateau des Charmes and Inniskillen, make a wide variety of, almost all of them are excellent wines. People like Bright's, who had a reputation for making foxy North American style wines, are making some good varietals now, European varietals. There's a lot of small Ontario wineries. I'm afraid I can't really speak about BC wine because I don't get much chance to taste it here because of the interprovincial duties. But Henry of Pelham in Ontario is a great small winery. They make great barrel-aged Chardonnays and Rieslings. Stony Ridge, which is almost a hobbyist's operation, makes very small batches of about 10 or 11 kinds of wine. All of them are excellent. Pelly Island has a lot of really good wines. Some of the reds are really nice, actually.
Okay, well, I've got tons more to ask you, but we have so many calls that we better start on them. Let's start with John in Toronto. Hi, John.
Yes, I'd like to know, first off, there's quite a few good American wines. I've tasted them down in the States, but none of them are quite comparable to the Canadian French wines, I would say. But
I'm sorry, comparable to the Canadian French wines? What do you mean?
Well, I just find that the taste was quite lacking, and some of them did have somewhat of a bit of an aftertaste. And the ones that I was having were in Miami and also in Los Angeles, and they were boasting how good their wine is. Had it for as long as we have. My question is how come Canadian wines are not so much available across the country as they are in Quebec? They're available at corner stores and where you can buy liquor, but in other provinces, like you were saying with duties and so forth in BC, there's not so many wines that are available from Quebec and BC and so forth. Why are they not more of them widely available to Canadians over the line instead of being available from California all the way up here into Canada?
But I just want to clarify, when you said Canadian French wines, you mean wines from Quebec, or that are available in Quebec?
Yes, I mean Quebec wines in general.
Okay.
Right. Well, because of the interprovincial barriers, you know about beer. Beer has to be produced in a province to be sold in a province. Wine is almost the same. BC wine, unless they've changed it in Ontario, is assessed duty at about the same rate as a French wine, which means that by the time that that $8 bottle of BC wine gets to Ontario, you're paying $15 for it. Same within Quebec. They just mark it up sky high. Hopefully, with the new GATT treaty, we will scale our own interprovincial barriers down because, frankly, BC wine gets marked up more than a California wine. I think California wine only has a 1% duty now.
Well, our callers should actually be supportive of the government's constitutional proposals because they're talking about, removing all interprovincial trade barriers, which I guess, if you're a wine drinker and want to taste wines from other provinces, would be a good thing. So we're really up there. I mean, see, this makes my heart beat as a Canadian a little bit faster. You're not only saying they're good, you're not just being nationalistic about this. You're saying we would rate in international wine tastings now.
Oh, yeah. There's quite a number of wines that are judged in Europe and win silver and gold medals. I mean, that's been going on for a long time, but Inniskillen was the first one I could think of that broke through that maybe about 10 years ago. But by now, they have a name for themselves. I've even seen a couple of bottles of Canadian wine when I've been traveling around the world, which amazed me.
So all those people that are saying fete to Canadian wine are being snobs themselves in some sort of reverse way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Let's go.
I mean, there could be, you could buy some really terrible wine, I'm sure, but
you could buy some really terrible French wine, too.
You can buy some awfully terrible French wine. If you go to France and go to a co-op corner store and buy their liter, 4 gold star stuff, that'll give you a headache like crazy.
Let's go to Alan in Sherbrooke. Hi, Alan.
Hi, I'm calling from Sherbrooke, Quebec, and I think the previous caller and your guest has covered most of my questions. But my main problem was wines, native wines. You can go to Ontario, a hotel, and I should mention the Chateau, they have a few, and British Columbia, you can get good native wines from the wine list, but anywhere else, it doesn't exist.
Well, see, that's a very good point you're making, that the restaurants, which really could do something to promote Canadian wines, aren't doing it.
That is right. And in Quebec, most of our wine comes from Quebec, and we have a suspicion that it comes over in tankers whose previous voyage carried liquid fertilizer.
What?
Also,
or this is a joke. You're joking.
Yes. Also, your caller from Toronto mentioned that the dépanneur down here, you can go into a corner store and get some wines, but you should try them. A lot of it should be put back in the camel.
What about that Randy, pick up on that question about the restaurants and why they don't put more Canadian wines on. Is it just because of the cost, that interprovincial cost, do you think?
No, well, if you're talking about an Ontario restaurant, I mean, I've worked in quite a few restaurants in the Ottawa area, and the fact is that most people, including restaurant owners and hotel managers, know virtually nothing about wine. They drink it a little bit, but they've never taken the time to either study it or to find somebody that knows about it. And then when they do find somebody that knows about it and they talk about all this great Canadian wine, they think this guy's nuts because they know that 15 years ago, almost every wine that was made in the country was made from hybrids or from the native grapes, which has this, quote, foxy, unquote, taste.
What does foxy mean, actually?
It's a kind of a musky, almost wet fir aroma that native Lambrusco grapes. Well, if you've had Welsh's Concord grape juice ferment in a container for a while and you get a smell for it, you get the idea. They've got some peculiar esters that come out of the native grapes that don't exist in the European strains.
Suitably only for your grade 12 grad. Let's go to Jack. I think this is in Ottawa. Hi, Jack.
Hi. My biggest problem with wines is more or less the labels. For instance, last week I served a bottle of wine, and somebody kind of went over to me and said it wasn't supposed to be chilled. You never know when you're supposed to chill it, how long, or leave it open before you pour it.
Right.
Any suggestions?
Would you actually like that to be on the label?
Yeah, they could put a little mark saying, no, chill before serving or keep cool, etc. They don't. Like, for instance, I have a bottle of Partage in front of me. It's a French wine, and it says absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But I thought the rule, I mean, this is the simple rule that I go by. White you chill, red you leave at room temperature. Randy, tell me different.
Okay, well, it's basically that way, although not all white should be chilled too much. It is possible for you to go to a bookstore perhaps, or maybe even one of the liquor stores and get a small card that gives you relative temperatures that you should drink at, vintage charts and whatnot. Actually, the last caller mentioned that he'd like to see some labels on wine labels about chilling and whatnot. They used to do that with some of the very popular brands, but I assume that most of the people that deal with wine now think that the public has enough knowledge, basically, so they leave all that stuff out. Because I remember even 10 years ago, cheap French wines or from other places said served chilled or served at room temperature. I don't see that now.
Well,
so I guess you have to know by yourself.
And that's kind of unfair, and that's a bit snobby in and of itself, isn't it? If they want us to buy their product, they could at least tell us the way we might enjoy it the most.
Well, I'd say for anybody all over the country, call up your local liquor store or wherever you happen to get liquor, if you get it at the Dépanneur in Quebec, and ask them to put up just a small chart to tell you what temperature you should serve wine with.
How would they determine that? Like, so let's say if it's the whites, and you're saying that some shouldn't be that cold. Is that the type of grape? Is that the style of wine that's made from the grape? How are those things distinguished?
It is. It has to do with how heavy the wine is, what grape is used, and the style, depending on whether it's sweet or dry.
For example, what wouldn't you want to chill too much?
You don't want to chill most reds. Some young light reds are quite Fahrenheit, say light Beaujolais, for instance. But a really great Bordeaux should be served around 66 degrees. Room temperature, actually, people think of as about 72, 75 degrees, and no wine should be served that warm. And it tends to bring out some odd characteristics in it. Every wine, including the best, should be a little cooler than your average room, yet no wine should be served ice cold. Maybe 45 or 6 degrees would be about the lowest temperature you'd really want to drink wine, because otherwise what you get is a complete loss of fruit flavor and texture, and all you get to taste is the acidity, which is nice in a light white wine, but if you're drinking a really nice Montrachet or any really great white Burgundy or California Chardonnay, you don't want to drink it quite that cold because you want all those lovely aromas to come out.
So some of the lighter white wines you would have colder than some of the heavier, the full-bodied whites.
I'd say that mostly you could think of it as the lighter it is, the colder you should drink it, and that goes with reds as well.
Okay, well that makes sense. Yeah, that's a fairly good rule of thumb.
I mean, people,
Let's go to George. Who's on first here, Randy? Let's go to George in Toronto. Hi, George.
Hello.
Hi.
I have a bottle or several of them that was given to me for Christmas. And they're Javelin, Bourgogne, Aligoté. And
Right.
the question that I would like to know, how should it be served? You partly related there how certain wine should be served, but how should this white wine be served?
Okay, well, what's he actually got there, Randy?
He's got what's called Bourgogne Aligoté. Aligoté is the secondary grape in Burgundy. It gets a separate name. It's the only other grape in Burgundy that's allowed to call itself Bourgogne something. Otherwise, all Burgundies are automatically 100% Chardonnay, except for a couple of very minor exceptions. Aligoté is traditionally used for Kir, which is the white wine and cassis combination in Burgundy, but it's a little expensive to do that here because of the prices now. And the Javelin Aligoté is not as typical because it's not just light and crisp. It actually has some body and some nice flavor.
So he's got a nice, interesting bottle of wine there.
He does.
Okay.
You could serve that with a good fish, perhaps shellfish, chicken, perhaps some veal or pork. I'd say serve it at about 45 to 48 degrees Fahrenheit, and that will bring out the best characteristics in it.
Now, you've just suggested the white wine with some kind of fish, but does that necessarily follow? If you've got one of those nice full Chardonnays or one of the full French whites, you can have those with veal and some light meat, can't you? You don't have to keep up that fish and white and red meat and red wine rule, do you?
No, there's actually the best rule to use is whatever you like that works for you is good. I mean, a lot of people that I know, I've known people high up in the hotel industry that would eat giant prawns and have a really tannic bottle of Italian red wine, and they love it. And
sounds awful.
Who can argue with that? No, but it depends on your personal taste, because I mean, I say that some wines are terrible, and that's almost a misnomer, because there's not really any terrible wine, because a lot of people like these wines, and it's whatever your taste is that's important. I mean, don't listen to me if I tell you that a wine is good and you taste it and it's no good for you. Don't drink it because I say so.
But, well, A, what about your guests? And B, isn't it a matter of developing taste? That's two questions in one.
It could be. It could be a matter of developing tastes. If you're a host, and if you want to play it safe, the easiest way to do it is to have an alternate. If almost everybody that you know drinks very dry Chardonnay-type wines, have that as your main wine, but keep something in reserve, maybe a slightly off-dry Riesling. If somebody wants something light and with a little bit of fruit and they're not really too keen on the sort of acidic-y, sour white wine, have that.
We're going to take a short break and we'll be back. This is fun. We welcome all of your questions, any of your questions about wine. We'll be back when Coast to Coast continues after this.
Children crying, Lord.
Hello, I'm Martin Sheen. The Croatian Relief Fund will help over 500,000 homeless refugees, several 100,000 children who need to be fed, and thousands of civilians who've been seriously wounded. By giving to the Croatian Relief Fund, you'll help supply the food, clothing, and medicine that these people so desperately need. Thank you.
Call 1-800-268-0877.
I didn't feel a need to change the way I'd wash my face.
Oil of Olay Foaming Face Wash. We asked Linnea to use it on one side of her face and the leading soap on the other side for 5 days.
The soap side felt really tight and dry. The Oil of Olay side felt really soft and smooth, silky. It was really nice.
Oil of Olay Foaming Face Wash. Change the way you wash your face forever.
I'm really impressed with the change in my skin.
2 reasons to subscribe to the Globe and Mail. 1, editorial quality. 2, reliable home delivery.
Well, I've been reading the Globe and Mail for 15 or 20 years, and there's no paper that can touch it in this city, and probably from coast to coast there's nothing that can come close to the quality of reporting in that paper.
The reason I have a subscription to the Globe and Mail is then I know it's there every morning. Now what that means is it's reliable.
And now you can get the Globe and Mail for less than $20 per month by calling 1-800-668-1503. Call 1-800-668-1503 right now and take advantage of this exceptional, time-limited, home-delivered subscription offer from Canada's national newspaper. Use your Visa, MasterCard, or American Express and call 1-800-668-1503.
The only way to have your coffee in the morning is with the Globe and Mail.
The Globe and Mail for the independent mind.
The most critically acclaimed movie of the year is Bugsy. Time magazine calls it riveting, elegantly made, and very smart. Warren Beatty, Annette Bening, Bugsy.
Now playing at select theaters. Check newspapers for locations.
Welcome back to Coast on Canada Live. In this hour, your questions, any questions about wine, to answer them, I'm joined by Randy MacDonald, who serves up wine and his expertise on the subject to diners at Wilfred's Grill in the Chateau Laurier. Our numbers, 1-800-665-1433 or 521-6285 if you're calling from Calgary. I just want to, our last caller had got this very nice bottle of wine for Christmas. If you are giving wine, what would you suggest doing, Randy? I mean, this is a big question, but let's say it's not going to be one of those expensive liqueurs, but a nice bottle of red or a nice bottle of white. What would you do? Or is it a good gift?
Well, I'd try and find out basically what the person drinks right now. If they don't drink wine, it could be better to play it safe and go for an off-dry white. Because with people's taste, if they don't drink wine, it's easier to start with an off-dry white, a German or a Canadian Riesling. And that's how you end up developing a taste, is to taste something you might like and then go on to something else and so on.
All right, let's say they are somewhat accustomed to wine and they drink a bit. And what about a bottle to, as they say, put down, something that you would want to keep for 4 or 5 years? Is there some fabulous bargain there, under 20 bucks? That's going to be my limit, under 20 bucks that you could buy somebody.
Okay, I could think of one of the best bets is Australian Reds. A lot of Australian Reds, most of them are under $20. Good Australian Shiraz or Cabernet Sauvignon, they're really a great deal right now. A lot of them are really weighty, big wines like California, rich, mouth-filling, and something that'll lay down for a number of years. Also, you could try for a bargain wine some young Spanish Riojas, or maybe a young French Bordeaux if it's not too expensive. It should be good for a couple of years at the very least.
Now, when you mention these categories, the Spanish Riojas, would you just take any Rioja, or does one have to know the vineyards? Does one have to know the vintner? Or do you just...
If you're going to buy to lay down, best to consult with a reference book of some sort, even if it's just a pocket Hugh Johnson encyclopedia. Or go to the store that you buy from, and or go to the main store in your town and ask to see whoever it is that's the wine consultant, because for laying down purposes, you do not want to take too many risks. You also don't want to go for anything that's really expensive unless you're already somewhat expert in wine, in which case you don't need me, frankly.
Do our liquor stores, you keep saying going to your liquor store, am I to assume then that these government employees actually know something about wine?
Well, what you have to do is you have to go to the main branch in your city, hopefully. I mean, in a town it can be very difficult because I don't know how much any of these people know about wine. I know in the local stores, unless I go to the main store, there's usually nobody that knows as much about wine as I do. So I go to the main store, or if you happen to be lucky in Ontario to have a Vintage's Corner, in your liquor store or one of the rare wine departments,
By definition, there'll be somebody
anybody
there.
that works in one of these rare wine departments has to know wine, or they don't get to work there to begin with. So,
okay, let's go to Dennis in Sudbury. Hi, Dennis.
Hi.
Got a question?
Yes, I'm interested in knowing if there's any place I can write to or find information about Canadian wine.
Sure, I can think the Ontario Vintners Association has quite a number of pamphlets and other information available. You could probably find it in the phone book. Otherwise,
well, I want to ask Dennis.
Otherwise, the LCVO would know.
What is it that you want to know, Dennis? Do you just want a list of them, or do you want to know who's good?
Well, I'd like a list of them and get a rating on them.
Yes.
Like I'm not a specialist on wine, but I like wine. I like red wine. And it'd be interesting to try out different types of wine.
So where can you get this rating? You see, that's the thing.
Now, ratings are a little more difficult because here in Ottawa, there's a couple of professional expert wine tasters that put out small pamphlets every once in a while, and you can subscribe to these. They're the Wine Consultants of Canada. Sorry, I don't have the address for you, but they offer judgings. They do a lot of tasting, and every month or so they send out a pamphlet telling you about exactly how all these wines rated, and they do Canadian wine as well as other people's wine.
You know, I just had a thought. I bet you if you phoned the Ontario Liquor Control Board, that they would have the list of wine clubs, or what's, I never know how to pronounce the fancy word for wine lover, the one that, O-E-N-O?
Oneophile.
That's how you put it. Okay.
Right.
I'm sure that the liquor board would have lists of those, and they would keep up with Canadian wines, wouldn't they?
Or call the library, your local library. I can think of the one person that comes to mind offhand that's written some books on Canadian wine is Tony Aspler from Toronto, and if he's written anything in the last year or two, you'll get a lot of ratings on Canadian wines. There's also, I can't think of the man's name, but he does Le Guide de Vin in Quebec. And there are a number of Canadian wines that he also judges.
You know, I'm finding this very exciting that people are really interested and really willing to experiment with Canadian wines. This is leaps and bounds ahead of what it was a few years ago. This call is from Peter. Val-des-Monts. It sounds like you come from a winery. That sounds, what a beautiful name. Hi, Peter.
Hi, it's actually right across the river from Ottawa.
Oh.
My question is fairly straightforward. It's in regards to how long you should hang on to a bottle of wine, specifically French Burgundies red. I have a case of Chateau Pommard 76, and now as per Hugh Johnson, he says 15 years is at its peak. And I'd like to know what basically is going to happen after the 15 years. Now we're on the way down if we don't start drinking it tomorrow.
Gee, I think you should just invite us all over, Peter. That is my suggestion. Or is it John? No, it's Peter. Yeah. Anyway, what do you think, Randy?
Peter, how have you been storing your wine? Do you have a wine cellar?
Yes, it's in the cellar, and it's being stored properly at the appropriate temperature.
It is?
Yeah.
I'd say right now your Chateau Pommard is probably at its best, but it might be another year or two before it really peaks. But 76 was a relatively light year in Burgundy. You had some really great flavors, but they might not last quite as long as, say, the 78s.
All right, then. Okay, well...
So any time from now till, say, the year 2000 or the year 2005, they should be great.
Okay.
Oh, I envy you.
We'll have to have one and try it on it.
Yeah, toast us. Toast us if you don't invite us over. At least toast us.
Yeah, write me a letter or make a phone call to the Chateau Laurier if you taste this, just to tell me what it's like.
Okay, well, I'll have to drop by and say hello.
Okay.
Great. Now, vintage years. This is a really pretty simple thing, isn't it? There are vintage years where the weather was great. I guess it's presumably the weather, and everything worked out swell. And if you've got those years, you've really got something of value.
If you're talking about the top-level properties like Chateau Pommard, which is one of the top-level Burgundies, or if you talk about a really top-level Bordeaux like Chateau Latour or Lafite, then it really makes a difference. But for most people, what you're going to be drinking is you're going to be drinking whatever has been made in the last couple of years, because most lighter wines or cheaper wines don't age that well. Now, all wines don't age. I mean, some wines don't age at all, and you have to drink them the year after the harvest, or else what they do is they go flat on you. And there's nothing worse than a white wine that's not fresh tasting. If it's flat, it's sort of insipid and yuck.
But there have been a couple of good years really recently, haven't they, where you might still be able to get something and put it down for a while?
Yeah, you could get 88s were said to be a really great year in Bordeaux, and so was 86. But one of the problems that you have with just a particular, just saying that 1976, say, was a great vintage year, it was in some places. But then there's microclimates all over the place, especially in France, where you've had some years where the Médoc in Bordeaux has had spectacular wines, but the Saint-Emilion wines had hail in the same year, and they're terrible, and you won't see that from your simple vintage chart.
Oh.
So you have to be sort of careful. on
Oh, that's kind of distressing, actually. I thought you just had to memorize a bunch of years.
No, well, but still, you're only talking about the top-level properties if you're talking about wine that's over 10 years old. You're not likely to see all that much of it unless you're talking about, say, Spanish or Portuguese wine, and that's because of the price. Spanish and Portuguese wines, especially Portuguese, some of the older wines are still very affordable, $10, $11, $12, and they don't make quite as much of a difference in certain areas like California. California's had basically good vintages every year for the last 15 years, although there might be a place here or there that didn't do as well as the whole.
Let's go to John in Toronto. Hi, John.
Hello.
Hi. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. What I just wanted to inquire about was, and without getting too technical, like, you know, I enjoy drinking wines and especially red wines, was when you're sampling wine, what to look for. You smell it and you know, sample the nose, I guess, and you know, again, without all these too technical terms, what are you exactly looking for? And I'm told that also the longer the wine lasts in your mouth, that typically it's a better vintage or a better wine.
Okay, basically, it's what you like that will make the difference. But if you are well versed in wine, you can look at, say, a red wine. You can smell it to see if there's any first sulfur. Sulfur will burn your nose, and that's not a good sign. Every wine needs to use a little sulfur as an antiseptic for the bottles and to make sure that there's no bacterial spoilage in the wine. But if you actually smell it right after you open the bottle, then you have to let it air out to begin with, but that is a fault. Other faults are that the wine's too old. It'll start tasting like faded rose petals or earth. You'll get an herbaceous earth taste. You should be looking for a wine to be basically clear, which almost all wines are now that they're filtered with modern equipment. It should have a bright, fresh, clean taste. It shouldn't taste muddy. And it should last a long time in your mouth. If you're talking about a really good wine, the longer that it lasts, the better it is. Of course, if you have a terrible wine, it might last a long time in your mouth, too.
Okay.
But that's an exception.
Big question, but a good start on it. Let's go to Michael in Welland. Hi, Michael.
Hi, I'm calling from Welland, and I understand in the peninsula here that they have a new product, relatively new. It's called ice wine. I was wondering what are its qualities, if it would make a good gift or anything.
I'm so glad you asked, because I hear this all the time, and I don't know what it is. What is it, Randy?
Ice wine is wines, the grapes that have been picked after the first frost. So there's actually ice coating the grape. What that does, that draws all the water out of the grape, leaving only the sugars and the extract. You make incredibly concentrated, flavored wines, nice and sweet and rich, but still has enough acid balance so that it doesn't taste syrupy. And
so would those be dessert wines?
They're dessert wines, for the most part, I'd say, although I think that you could try some of the ice wines with, say, a pâté de foie. Something really, a really, really rich goose liver or something like that. But because of some strange thing with the climate and our soil, we make some of the best sweet ice wine in the world. I mean, they're going nuts about it in Europe right now.
Our ice wine?
Our ice wine. Our ice wine is considered, if not the best sweet wine in the world. We're coming really close. I mean, there's some sauternes that still cost a lot of money that might be better, but maybe not.
Speaking of dessert wines, someone to me recently said that because of the price of the horrendous price of liqueurs now, I mean, they're just out of sight, that dessert wines are really taking their place as an after-dinner drink, you know, even with cheeses or coffee or something like that. Would you go along with that?
I haven't seen that in my experience. Sweet wines, at the very least, where I live here in Ottawa, just haven't really caught on, and I've been trying in the last couple of places that I've worked to introduce them to people, but there's so few people that know anything about sweet wines. They're afraid to try them.
Well, how would you suggest using them? Literally with dessert or after the meal is finished?
It's hard to serve most wines with dessert. You could have Sauterne with peaches, say, but you have to make sure that your dessert is not more sweet than the wine,
so
or
you
the
really,
wine tastes
it would really
strange.
have to be balanced out. So then if you can't really serve it with a sweet dessert, would you have it after dessert? Would you have it with coffee or at the end of the meal?
You could have it after dessert, or you could have it instead of dessert. It makes a great dessert. You could also try a sweet sherry, such as Noe, which is a very light in alcohol sherry, but it has a beautiful chocolate flavor, and I don't know if it's available everywhere, but it's certainly a nice alternative.
And boy, a ton less expensive, huh, than some of the...
Oh, geez, a lot less expensive.
Liqueurs.
Oh, yeah, liqueurs are $40, $45 a bottle, and these are about $10, $12. Or you could go for maybe a Hungarian Tokaj, as you, which is another sweet Sauterne-like wine, and they're relatively inexpensive, and they're great instead of dessert.
Let's try, we could talk a long time, but let's try to get one more call in. This is David from Aurora, Ontario. Hi, David.
Hello, how are you today?
Good.
The question I'd like to ask Randy about is the VQA, the appellations from France and from Italy, the DOC, just the quality controls that different countries put on, and maybe you could tell us just a little about those. Thank you.
Gee, that would take us about an hour and a half. I think we've got less than 2 minutes. Maybe you can give us a real quick review, and I'll cut you off if we have
Okay, I'll make a real quick review. In France, they've had laws for about 50 years, and they're called appellation contrôlée. What that means is that wine from a specific area with specific grapes, they're only allowed to have make so many grapes per hectare and make so much wine out of it, and then it has to go through a quality test panel. In Italy, they have the DOC, which is something like the French system, although it's not quite as exact, and they have a guaranteed system, and it also isn't working out very well in Italy. Actually, in Italy, what you should look for is you should look for a particular manufacturer and have one of his special wines. In Ontario, the VQA is being developed, let's say. There are certain areas that they're allowed to put on the label. The grapes have to come from there, and it has to, again, go through a quality panel tasting it to be able to get the VQA symbol. So any of the VQA wines are at least of decent quality, and some of them are quite good.
I think we have a few seconds left, so I'm going to ask you one final quick question. Eastern Europe, now that, I mean, there have been some, there are certainly wineries in the Ukraine, there are Yugoslavian wines and Hungarian wines. What about those? Anything worth drinking from there?
Lots of them are worth drinking, but a lot of them are just starting to arrive in Canada now. Yugoslavia has been making some pretty good wine for quite a long time, and it's been in the stores for a long time. Although for political reasons, who knows whether you want to drink them or not right now. Hungary's made great wine for a long time. Bulgaria should be one of the up-and-coming places because their soil is great for it, and they've been making good wine for many hundreds of years, and a lot of their reds are not top quality, but they're second quality, and they're really inexpensive. A great buy.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. Really interesting stuff. Have a nice New Year's. I hope you have a wonderful bottle of champagne.
I will. Thanks very much, Ann, and Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. That brings us to the end of this 2-hour edition of Coast to Coast on Canada Live. We're going to do the same thing again tomorrow when we return at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to talk about the year gone by and who the top newsmakers were in 1991. In our first hour, the top newsmaker nationally. Second hour, internationally. Join me for that starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. See you then. Bye-bye.
For Ward Sinclair, who was told, "You can't get there from here." Canadian Airlines, together with its partners, offers service to more places in Canada than any other airline. For Pierre Lassard, who stood number 38 in a line of 38, Canadian Airlines offers same-day return boarding passes, and we're the only airline in Canada that does.
Timeless classics from the silver screen, each carefully transferred from mint 35mm prints, ensuring the highest quality reproduction. Now, in this special limited time offer from Quality Video, you can enjoy these timeless classics in your own home, presenting the Collector's Edition. The Big Trees, an action-filled, heartwarming saga in the grand tradition of sprawling westerns, starring Kirk Douglas and Eve Miller. This epic adventure highlights the appeal and drama of the American Western. See James Stewart and Donna Reed in that all-time classic, It's a Wonderful Life. The story of a young man who learns that his dreams for himself and others can only be realized through kindness. And who could forget Bob Hope and Dorothy Lamour in the hilarious comedy My Favorite Brunette? To help a beautiful countess out of dire straits, our hero turns from baby photographer to detective and gets a little more than he bargained for. For a limited time, you can own all 3 collector's editions for the incredible price of only $49.95. The collector's editions are not sold in any store, so have your pen and paper ready to find out how to order. But wait, order now through this limited time TV offer, and as a bonus, we'll include a 4th collector's edition, Lassie, the Painted Hills. This treasured tale, set in the majestic Cascade Mountain Range in Oregon, will thrill dog lovers of all ages. All 4 collector's editions are available now, and only from Quality Video. Here's how to order yours.
Visa, MasterCard, or COD. Call toll-free 1-800-563-5533. That's 1-800-563-5533. Or send check or money order for $49.95 for 3 videos plus a bonus video. Add GST and $5 postage and handling to the Collector's Edition. Post Office Box 1101, 835 York Mills Road, Don Mills, Ontario. M3B 1Y2. Operators are standing by.
After 5 years of captivity, Terry Waite is free. Was he a well-meaning envoy for the church or a spy for the Americans in Beirut? Terry Waite on CBC Newsworld.
Midday with Tina Shrabodniak and Ralph Ben-Murgy.
Good afternoon. This is Midday for Monday, December 30th.
On the show today, the year in review. In 1991, we witnessed the Gulf War and the collapse of the Soviet Union. Here at home, of course, there was the recession and continued constitutional wrangling. We'll talk to 3 analysts about the year's significant events.
Is there a difference between a violin and a fiddle? Ann Letterman doesn't think so. She's a fiddler who also studies the folk traditions across this country. We're going to meet her and listen to some of her great music later in the show.
Maria LaRose is going to talk about the move away from excessive New Year's celebrations to more family-oriented ones, and we'll look at one of the best ads of 1991, Chanel's Egoist campaign. First, though, Norma Kent with the Midday News.
Good day from the National Newsroom. The leaders of the republics of the former Soviet Union are meeting in Minsk, and they're arguing over the kind of issues that are the most sensitive between neighboring states, economics and the military. The economies of the republics are in shambles, and it still hasn't been decided what to do about the old Red Army and its deadly hardware. More from Anna Maria Tremonti.
Russian President Boris Yeltsin arrived in Minsk insisting the new Commonwealth of Independent States is strong, confidently predicting no dispute is difficult enough to threaten the new coalition. Others are being more cautious. Ukrainian President Leonid Kravchuk, who already disagrees with Yeltsin on military and economic policy, arrived saying he'll await the outcome of this meeting before signing any joint charter. Ukraine wants its own army, not the unified command Russia has proposed. Kravchuk's government has already expressed its anger with a Russian decision that saw the former Soviet Navy's most powerful ship ordered out of a Ukrainian Black Sea port and into a Russian port. The issue of who controls a military of close to 4 million men is still in dispute. Yeltsin has control of nuclear weapons, but it's not clear whether the republics who now have them will give them all up. And on the eve of this meeting, former Soviet Foreign Minister Eduard Shevardnadze told an Italian newspaper of his concerns over military control. I don't rule out nuclear warheads and even complete tactical weapons falling into the hands of some paramilitary formations, he said. Many of the things which could happen here could result in trauma and disruption for the whole of Europe and the entire world. Economic questions are also high on the agenda in Minsk. Ukraine's Kravchuk and other leaders are worried their own already troubled economies will suffer when Russia lifts price controls later this week. Yeltsin has already refused a request from the other republics to delay his economic plan. He acknowledges the measures are tough, but says they are the only way to revive the economy. Anna Maria Tremonti, CBC News, Moscow.
And in the Republic of Georgia this morning, the president and his government are bracing for an all-out attack by rebel forces. Zviad Gamzakordya has taken cover for a week inside a heavily defended bunker within the parliament building.